Peace, love, and light, y'all. What's going on? First and foremost, on this one, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. We are about to get into forgiveness, which is probably, at least for me personally, gonna be the most important accountability hour I put out maybe ever. So, join with me for a second and let's get a quick inhale and exhale. And tell y'all the story. um, as opposed to my usual format. Uh, Quick fun facts you should know. I started my mental health journey at the end of 2020 into 2021 after becoming fatigued and tired. And as my previous accountability hour will tell you in detail about lying, it started on a lie. I was on a search for myself, on a search to try to heal and be a better human being. But it was under the guise of getting Adderall. Now, mind you, I had been introduced to Adderall and frankly was obsessed with it at the time. I loved the way it made me feel. Telltale sign that of the diagnosis I eventually got of ADHD that I've had through that process. So it was partially true, but the bigger truth was a really, really, really good friend of mine, like a sibling, you know what I mean? That I kept hurting and I didn't know how to not hurt them. You know what I mean? It was just certain social cues I didn't understand, certain things that I just couldn't wrap my head around, all this conditioning and all of these things I didn't get. So got into therapy. We can fast forward to 2024 when my healing started to reach a fever pitch. I was tapping into my spiritual gifts. I was tapping into my inner child and trying to get to know my emotions after bottling for basically my entire life. And I was getting into all of the things. And as you can imagine, getting into all of that and tapping on those doors that most people leave closed creates behaviors because all of your parts are wilding out, especially the parts you haven't tapped into, like in my case, anger, and why I couldn't feel certain things, not wanting to cry, not wanting to do all these things because I always wanted to keep the peace and be a chameleon and fit in. Now I was willing to stand out and my inner self, my inner world was freaking out. So through that time in 2024 is when also there were a lot of changes happening with this really good friend of mine. So we were both evolving in different directions. That friend was seeing all the changes and just not understanding the different twists and turns. So I don't blame them for saying this. You know what I mean? I understand where they were coming from, but I didn't listen. They advised me to stop digging, to stop digging into my mental health because it was causing all of these things. From their perspective, it was the best thing that I should do. I innately just felt something. And mind you, usually I'm a people pleaser. I would just stop based on what somebody else said just to keep the peace. But this go around, I did not. I kept pushing and pushing, 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 pushing. And I'm so proud of myself for doing that. So I get a suggestion from my therapist in June of that year to get a psych evaluation. And the psych evaluation is where I got my official tags to go along with ADHD, the CPTSD, uh, the social anxiety, and a big one that was a clue to what was about to happen next, disassociation. That psych evaluation also partially opened up a repression uh, that I had been molested as a child between 8 and 9. I say partially, I'll get to that in a moment. But I want to give thanks to my beautiful father who took the time to take me the 3 hours away to Afton, Virginia to get the psych evaluation because it started a excellent, excellent change that needed to happen. But things reached a fever pitch after getting those asterisks, those acronyms, if you will, because I kept digging. I wanted to know more. I wanted to understand. I was tapping into my inner child and doing a lot of things that I used to love doing as a kid. Also, under the advisement of my awesome therapist, shout out to her. And through that process, I got the other part of my repression at the beginning of July while listening to, fun fact, Section 80 by Kendrick Lamar. Um, and the other part of the repression is where things took a turn in my mind, truthfully. I got the part where it wasn't just me that was molested, it was also my younger sibling, who was a couple years younger than me. So do the math, like 6, 7. And who my abuser was, who was my mom's boyfriend at the time, now husband. So as you could imagine, I went into coping mechanisms. I didn't know how to deal with that. I tried to bottle it. I didn't know how to talk about it with my really good friend because again, they had a lot going on in their life too. And I didn't want to add burden to them. I didn't know how to bring that to my father because he had already had his misgivings about my mother's husband and everything from past things. I didn't know how to do any of that, so I tried to hold it down. And then at the end of July is when things took a turn, and I had my episode. Now I've gone into what happened in my episode and all of those things through pieces and through other videos, so y'all go and check them out because this is about forgiveness. So after I've had my episode, I've been in the hospital for a week voluntarily because the hospital actually wanted to release me after 72 hours, which would not have been good, just to put it lightly. I needed a week. So again, I innately follow my instinct and volunteered to stay, to understand my diagnosis and myself, and to fully wrap my head around my Kundalini awakening, which was coinciding with it. Wild work, y'all. Spiritual things, wild work. But after that, I wanted to have the conversations, you know what I'm saying? And this is where the forgiveness comes in. This is where it starts. I was already wide open with my parents, both of them. They've been super supportive, were with me through my episode, supported me while I was in the hospital. Beautiful. When I told my mom what came up through the repression, she shut down. Didn't know how to deal with it because she's also a bottler. And from that point, she distanced herself from me, which really, it was a bullet. It was a bullet. Also, during that time, the really good friend I ghosted for the same reason. Like the episode was too much. That person actually came over and was the person who called my parents to let them know that something was wrong, which I will forever be indebted to them for. I salute you, champ. And I love both of them. Also, I had to come to terms with and forgive my abuser. How I did that, my awesome therapist that I keep mentioning, I suggested let go letters. So with time, with honestly a major bout of depression, once I actually wrapped my head around the fact that I needed to let these people go and they're still living, which is a whole mind freak, I wrote these let go letters and kept repeating them and reading them out loud. And eventually I actually sent my mom and a really good friend that I had these letters. I I did not send my abuser his letter, but I did release, and heal from that point. But the biggest forgiveness, I left to the end, and the biggest forgiveness is me. I had to forgive myself. Um, Coming to terms with learning that I was bipolar also meant going back in my timeline. I had been holding on to guilt for over 20 years since it happened when I was 14 years old. I inappropriately touched a younger person um, sexually, and I didn't understand why. And I self-medicated. I was suicidal. I hoarded. I overate. I was morbidly obese, like super obese. I was almost 400 pounds. I went through a phase where I didn't bathe. There were so many things, and all stemming from obviously the repressions that I didn't know about and these wild acts that I committed. It wasn't just that I was overly stealing, habitually lying. I even one time put butane fluid in my abuser's liquor. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, throughout all of these things, why am I doing these really wild things? I called bomb threats on a church, y'all. Yeah, and I was like 13, you know, I, but so I had to come to forgiveness for myself. But once I did, the amount of freedom. So I'm here to let y'all be free, to show y'all that you can be free and admit it and say it out loud. No, I'm not an abuser. No, I am not my past. I am the future.